Please give a warm welcome to writer-director Rian Johnson.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you.
And gang, this is his anniversary weekend. He brought his wife.
My wife Karina, our 4-year anniversary.
Happy anniversary!
But thank you guys all for coming out. I really appreciate it.
Of course, Ryan. Right off the bat, I want to ask you about Stephen Sondheim, which we lost this past year, and you pay homage in many ways in this film, including the fact that he wrote The Last of Sheila, and the film owes a lot of debt to Stephen Sondheim. Tell us about.
Absolutely. I mean, Sondheim, a lot of you probably know his connection to kind of the murder mystery genre. I mean, with Anthony Perkins, he co-wrote The Last of Sheila, which if anyone here hasn't seen it, seek it out. It's an amazing 70s whodunit. But Sondheim was also a puzzle nut and a game nut, and he would actually invite his friends out and do these elaborate murder mystery games. And he also the only non-musical play that Sondheim ever wrote was a whodunit. He was a real fan of the genre, and I'm also a huge musical theater guy. So
well, me too.
So with both him and also I still can't believe Angela Lansbury. It's just a fun little moment in the movie, but it means so much to me.
Was Stephen aware that you were making this? And
So there's a scene in the first movie, in Knives Out, where Daniel Craig sings a bit of "Losing My Mind" from Follies, and I was very nervous as to how Stephen Sondheim would react to Daniel singing in it, but I heard through the grapevine that he had seen it and enjoyed it. So we rolled the dice on this and got in touch with him. And Angela Lansbury also, they were both so incredibly sweet and patient to come and do a little bit in the movie. And I'm just also personally grateful I got to meet both of them and have just a couple of minutes with each of them to, tell them what their work has meant to me.
Tell us about this second one, the fact that we get to know a lot more about Benoit Blanc. In the first one, it was seen completely through the eyes of Ana de Armas' character, and this time around is actually through the eyes of Blanc.
Yeah, it's a different construction, and that to me is what's kind of exciting about making these movies, and hopefully getting to keep making them. Hopefully
you're going to continue making more, right, everybody?
Thank you. Right. What's fun to me is just kind of going back to the original inspiration, which for me is my love of Agatha Christie growing up, and I think about Christie's books and how with every single book, she was trying something incredibly different. And you could tell the new thing that she was trying in the book, not just a new setting or type of murder, but a new story gambit or mixing in a new genre, something that really made each book a new, fresh experience. So that's what excites me about this, is the notion of, can we keep doing this and truly give the audience something different every single time?
But how did it come about, the entryway with Blanc?
So that ended up being just kind of how the story ended up working out. But it was a pleasant kind of, I was about to say surprise. It wasn't really a surprise because I wrote it, but it was a pleasant thing to come to because you're right. In the first movie, it's entirely through Marta, Anna's character, and Blanc is almost like
peripheral.
Yeah, he's almost like the shark in Jaws. He kind of pops up here and there, and you're kind of worried he's going to catch her. Whereas this, you're coming into it through his eyes, and so it gave us an opportunity to, you kind of learn that he's faking a little bit in that first half. It kind of, but anyway, you still come into it through his perspective. And so it was an opportunity also to get a glimpse of his home life and see, I think in the genre, a little glimpse here and there of the backstory of the detective is really, really fun. And it can never be the cart that leads the horse, I think. It always has to be about the mystery, but I always love getting little hints of kind of what his life is.
On that note, what I've admired about the two films is that the whodunit is a MacGuffin. It's ultimately we shouldn't care about who did it. It's the way you've constructed the story is the ride. It's the story. Can you tell us about building this monster based on the story. And
that's right on the nose. That's exactly it. And that's exactly the approach that I take with these. I mean, as a huge fan of the genre myself, I know from experience that any whodunit that I really love is not relying on the clue gathering and the surprise of whodunit at the end to entertain me. It's got something else going on. It has another engine. Because ultimately, I do kind of agree with Hitchcock that just the surprise of, oh, this person did it, that's nice, but it's not worth sitting through a whole movie for. You can kind of, and so ultimately you need a protagonist that you care about, and you need to be leaning forward, worried what's going to happen next. And that means you have to have, like you said, a story driving the whole thing, and always making sure that that's the center of the movie and that you're never leaning on the puzzle solving. I want these to be roller coaster rides, not crossword puzzles, I guess.
Speaking of puzzles, you have such a big cast, and the introduction of the cast it's got to be super hard. But then you do this puzzle bugs. Yeah, you're in the big screen.
Oh, that's terrifying. I apologize for that.
Yeah, well,
I should never be that big. I'm sorry.
But you do this puzzle bugs situation thing that is able to introduce all of the characters. How did you arrive at that concoction?
Yeah, it was like in the first movie, there was a quick sequence in the library where Blanc questions everybody. Mm-hmm. And in this one, it's the puzzle box. I'm always looking for, okay, what's a fun, entertaining, engaging way of getting through essentially the dirty, necessary work of an ensemble murder mystery, which is introducing everybody and knowing what everyone's deal is. And you got to do it in a novel. You've got a nice stretch at the beginning to do it. In a movie, you kind of want to get it done and start the story. So the notion, this was very fun to encase it all in this fun, quick little sequence. It also had a game at the center of it that gives it some structure. Also, the fact that everyone's home during lockdown means we get to see them in their own environment, which was a great way to just shorthand to the audience.
But how difficult was it? It must have been really difficult to shoot the.
It was,
because they're communicating with each other. How did you were able to?
So you're asking the good questions, man. You're going right to it because this is actually interesting. So we had to. It was because we had to shoot all those scenes separately, but we couldn't cut. They were on screen the whole time because of the split screen, and their dialogue had to line up. So what we did, we shot Catherine first with Dallas, who plays her husband, and we shot their scene, and we had Kate and Leslie off screen and Dave doing the other lines. And then we had to pick our take. We had to select which take was the best. And then the sound guy edited out everyone else but Catherine. And then we shot Kate's section of it and put Catherine's lines in her ear in an earwig. And she was acting, and we had Leslie and Dave there live. And so Kate was acting off of the recording that she had done of Catherine. And then we picked Kate's take, and we built her lines together with Catherine's, and then we shot Leslie's, and he was acting off of both of them in an earwig. They had gone. They weren't even on set at that point. So it was this elaborate thing where we had to build it all up to get the timing exactly right. It was really fun.
Which leads me to the follow-up question regarding editing. I've seen the film a couple of times now. The tone, the editing must have been, pardon my four-letter word, bitch, to edit this. I mean, the film has a lot of genres mixed in. It's not just a whodunit. You have action, you have drama, you have several different genres built into the film. So editing the tone of the film.
Well, that's it. I mean, because my editor Bob Doucet and I, we've worked together now. God, this is our fourth movie together, and so we have a really good, close relationship. And I mean, the plot and the pace and all of that is tricky when it's this complicated. But the big thing is always tone. It's always tone, and especially with an ensemble, that's really where the work goes in the edit is. making sure everybody's kind of playing at the same volume level, and making sure it's consistent and that the whole thing, nothing in it kind of breaks. Everyone feels in the same world, which the actors do a large degree on set. But you're also playing and you're trying different things and you're wanting to kind of push and pull and see how big and small you can get. So it's really the work in the edit room to kind of find exactly where it wants to live.
The first movie, we're in New England. It's all indoors and cozy, and then all of a sudden we're in the Greek Isles. Were you conscious about the fact that, I'm gonna go completely on a 180-degree turn to the Greek Isles?
Absolutely. That was showing, and that's another kind of, I talked about wanting it to be really different from a different experience from the first. So showing the audience right out of the gate, this is going to be a whole different ride. That was kind of the setting. Also, I wrote the movie in 2020 in the middle of lockdown, when I think a lot of us were sitting at home wishing we could be on a Greek island. So I just got to, fade in Greek island. Let's see if this works.
But also, this one feels broader in the sense of like comedy and like comfort zone. You seem a lot more confident in this film.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I think the tone of it is broader than the first one. I think that's largely a function of who and what it's about. The instant I put a tech billionaire at the center of this, that's going to have a certain type of person as like his friend group, and all of a sudden the tone and the level of comedy of the whole thing is the volume's going to come up a little bit once you're talking about certain
How difficult
people.
was it to craft Miles Brown, where we know of a lot of infamous tech billionaires that are...
No idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, and we don't need to name them, but was that he's very unique. He doesn't look like the others.
Well, yeah, or he looks like all the others put together. Yeah, it was, it was interesting in writing it because I found you're right, a lot of real world analogs to Miles. And I found that it really unuseful to think too specifically about any of them. The instant I started thinking about this person or that person specifically, it got very boring very quickly, just taking the piss out of one person. And so what I found I always had to do is kind of zoom back and think about these people in general and their place in society. And what's really interesting is not even they're not even that interesting. What's interesting is our relationship to them, and this odd kind of American thing we all have of deep down inside kind of this instinct to mistake wealth for wisdom or competency, and how all of us kind of want to sling arrows at these people, and at the same time have a little thing inside us that's like, what if they're right? Still want them to be Willy Wonka. And that tension, I think, was much more interesting to explore than just kind of, making fun of this or that person.
Unlike the other whodunits that we're familiar with in film, yours, Knives Out, and this one feels current. You're dealing with current topics, greed, corruption, et cetera. Is that something that you're conscious that I want to be relevant to?
That was really the marching orders for myself for the whole thing. It was a big part of it was, and again, it goes back to Agatha Christie. It goes back to, I think that growing up loving the film and TV that's been made of her work, so much of that was, they're period pieces set kind of in the hazy past in England. They're far, far disconnected from our reality. And the reality is, if anyone is actually a fan and reads her writing, that's not what she was. She wasn't writing period pieces. She was writing to her time and to her place. Her first Poirot book, The Mysterious Affair at Styles, when she introduces Captain Hastings, who's kind of her Watson, he's home with a wound from the Western Front, and she wrote that book in 1916. She was writing to her current time, and the genre itself is particularly, it's an incredibly well-engineered tool to talk about stuff. If you think about the heart of the genre, it's by necessity, and the one thing every murder mystery has in common is this little collective of suspects that has a power structure built into them with somebody at the top who wants to kill. Really what you're building is a little microcosm of society by necessity. And that's an incredibly potent tool, and one that is prepackaged in this candy-coated entertainment shell. And so, and it hadn't been used for that, I felt like, for a while. And so kind of lashing myself to the mast of we're gonna throw out the idea of timelessness, and we're just gonna unapologetically set it right here and right now.
So you dealt with greed and corruption in the first one. This one, you deal again with greed and corruption, but then power dynamics as well.
Yeah, and big dumb lies. Yeah.
You're a costume designer. I'm in awe of Jenny Egan. And I love the fact that like we're able to tell so much about the characters based on the costume. My staff will tell you, in my office, I have a big poster of Monsieur Lowe's Holiday, and I was like blown away by the fact that Blanc wears, Monsieur Lowe's holiday outfit. Yeah, tell us about that, and how did that come about?
Jenny Egan.
Bless you.
Jenny Egan is incredible. She did the first Knives Out with us also. She did this. She's absolutely amazing. And that's something that Daniel actually brought to her. He basically, the references, and I was very proud because I was on set, and like when I first saw his costume, when he first like showed it, it was like, we do the show and tell, and what do you think? I was able to spot the two references, which are Jacques Tati and Cary Grant in To Catch a Thief, with those high trousers that you kind of have to be either Daniel Craig or Cary Grant to pull off. Like, if I wear those, I look like a character from Wind in the Willows very quickly. I can't do it. But yeah, it let him lean a little bit into the physical comedy also, which he's very much channeling Tati, the scene where he runs away from the alarm and everything. It's like, yeah.
Bless you. And then the Hudson, the dress, that is a rainbow, and then she twirls, and it just reveals the colors, which ties to the theme of the movie. How did that come about, that dress?
Well, that dress was it's a very specific kind of like plot point a little bit, because we use it to a certain effect in the movie. But with Birdie, with the character that Kate Hudson played, I mean, first of all, just being able to take a comic actor like Kate and let her loose on that part felt very joyous every day on set. Kate had the best description of how she played that part. She said, "I think Birdie understands every third word." And if you watch her reaction shots, it's so good because she's like, she's like overplaying her comprehension in a way that cracks me up every time. But Jenny was able to just kind of cut loose with Birdie, and Kate was so game for it.
And how much did Catherine Hahn hate you, the fact that she's wearing beige throughout the entire movie?
I think poor Catherine, she showed up thinking, oh, Knives Out, great costumes, and then she describes coming into the costume department and walking past Kate's rack that's all these glittering colors and bikinis, and walking past Daniel's rack that's like the blue and the blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, this is fabulous. And then getting to her rack, and it's like, wah, 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 wah. Just a wall of beige and like tan and just so I was like, I'm sorry, you have to be kind of the sad trombone of I think she says there was at one point she and Jenny like showed me a costume, and it was all beige but it had like a little ruffle up top, and I was like, it's too fancy, it's too sorry.
Your cousin scores the film once again, Nathan Johnson. I'm a big fan. Tell us about the Nino Rota influence into the film.
Yeah, Nathan, my cousin, we've been making movies together since we were 10 years old, and he's done all the movies I've done, except for Star Wars, which we were compelled to use a young whippersnapper named John Williams for. So, But Nathan, I just am so proud of his work in this movie. It's kind of
it's terrific.
It's a big, lush kind of Hollywood
He does
score.
something really interesting, that every character has a little motif. Like I was noticing the broken chords on Janelle Monáe. you know,
One of my, and he'll also, he's the first person I talk to about the story. He reads the script, he's on set, he's thinking on a story level. I mean, there's stuff baked into it that's so much fun. Like when Miles is doing his big Disruptors speech, the musical theme that plays through it is actually Andy's character's theme. So he has Miles steal even Andy's theme. It's very fun. He gets in the weeds with me.
yeah,
and
it's one of the
fun
things
having
that you can
collaborated.
watch the film and without just listening to the score, and you actually understand the dynamics, listening to the music. I mean,
He's a storyteller. He really is. Yeah.
it's fantastic. And then your DP, how challenging was it to shoot inside a glass house?
Don't throw rocks. Yeah. Yeah. Steve Yedlin, who's my cinematographer. I mean, again, though, is somebody that I've had a long relationship and friendship with. We met on a student film set when I was a freshman in college and Steve was still in high school. So, so we have like a real basis of trust there. And Steve is an amazing kind of color science guru. And I mean, we shot the film digitally, but I love a filmic look, and he kind of dragged me away from shooting film with my nails scratching on the cement as he dragged me, and I'm so happy with the look that he got for it. Feels.
I
very
have to
filmic
ask
me.
you about the lighthouse effect, which
Oh,
is
yeah,
like
so,
theatrical, but then realistic, but at the same time, it's like super theatrical.
So Steve and his gaffer built this incredible device that was on set. It was this massive drum that had like some special motor that they ordered from Scandinavia and was able to like program it so that he could exactly time it. And basically it's a drum with a notch cut into the drum and a huge light in the middle. It was basically a lighthouse. He'd actually built like kind of a lighthouse device, and he could time the thing to sweep exactly how he wanted it on set.
But script-wise, when the actors, was it timed?
Yeah,
to...
we had to basically get this thing going and then say, okay, go. It was kind of like and we had to time it over and over to get it exactly right. And we couldn't stop the thing, because if we stopped it for too long, it would catch on fire because the light was so hot inside.
So, but the actors were like
They were
aware of
into
the
it. Oh my
timing?
God, yeah, absolutely. But actors, they're like moths. They'll go to their light. So they.
But I was blown away by the lighting and the light. It was so dramatic and so cool. Casting. Once again, you hit it out of the ballpark. I mean, the first one, incredible ensemble. This time around, you do it again. How do you do it?
You get really lucky. I mean, I write. I don't write with actors in mind, because I find that's like a pathway to heartbreak, because inevitably then they're not available or something. So I try and just write good characters, and then I sit down with Mary Vernew, who is our longtime casting director, and we see who's out there, and we start sifting through it. I think the one big element in these movies, this and also Knives Out, in addition to just wanting the best people in the part, it's a bit like writing up an invitation list for a dinner party. You also are going to be an ensemble who's isolated together for a while shooting this thing. You kind of have to really enforce the only cool people who are going to get along, rule. And in both cases, in both films, we've kind of caught lightning in a bottle, and I hope you can tell in the movie we genuinely had a blast making it. And everyone got along. And kind of,
but is that something that you had to build and like create the camaraderie, or it was just instantaneously?
No, it's something that you did. Like we definitely, the first time we showed up in Greece, and Daniel threw a party for everybody, or when we were in Belgrade shooting all the stuff on the stage, it was in the middle of the Delta surge, and so we wanted to keep everyone safe. We were very locked down in the hotel. So on the weekends, we would rent out the hotel bar up top, and we would all bring everyone up there, and we would all get drunk and play Mafia together.
I want to be part of this.
It was seriously, it felt like drama camp, like theater camp or something. It was kind of ridiculous.
And then. I don't want to spoil things for people that watch this. We're taping it, but Ethan Hawke.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah.
How did that How did that come about? He's
Ethan
genius.
Yeah, he's an actor that I wasn't friends with him. I had always wanted to work with him. I hope I get to properly work with him someday. But he was in Budapest working on a TV show with Oscar Isaac, Moon Knight, and so he was in the area and we lured him over to Greece with his family for a weekend and like put them up in a nice place. And
You actually told him that you would be doing like shots up in the...
Exactly, yeah. And he showed up for one day and at the very beginning of the shoot, and it was almost like he was like blessing. I think he gave the shoot a blessing before he left, and then disappeared off into the sunset, just like his character, never to be seen again.
I think you alluded to the fact that you shot all through COVID. The challenges of doing that.
Yeah, it's challenging. I mean, you know, everyone here who's had to do some version of their job in the past couple of years, you know, I mean, you want to keep everybody safe, and so that means there's restrictions, and so is masks on set and all the zones, but you also adapt. You know, I think it's pretty crazy how quickly you're able to kind of adapt to those restrictions and to make it work. You know?
The artwork is surreal. They're all fakes, I hope. But I did notice the Rothko was upside down.
Did you actually notice that, or did you read an interview with me where I said?
No, I'm a huge Rothko fan.
That makes me happy.
Yeah. So, you know, tell us about the artwork.
That's so cool, man. Yeah.
Well, I saw on Broadway Red, the play. I'm a huge Rothko.
That was my, because I'm not an art guy. I don't have an art history background. Rick Heinrich, who's our production designer, he does. And so I leaned on him and that was my only contribution as I walked in, saw that Rothko, and said, okay, let's turn it upside down. So, but Rick is, he's incredible. I did The Last Jedi with Rick, and he came up working with Tim Burton, and Rick is incredibly talented at doing very artful, character-based design on a grand scale, which is kind of what we needed for this movie. So all the sets and kind of the ridiculous melange of all these styles that don't fit together, and just the garish sort of, it looks like a designer kind of vomited or something, you know, that was that set, and yet it all somehow felt like the inside of Miles's brain a little bit, you know.
Mm-hmm. And last but not least, Glass Onion. How did that come about?
Yeah, when I was writing, I was kind of trying to come up with like a overwrought metaphor that Blanc could beat to death like a dead horse. And so the notion of like, well, it's multi-layered, but you can see the center of it at all times, something like that. I'm like, okay, well, some glass object. And I thought, okay, it's a rich person's island. Maybe he has some glass structure, like a glass palace or a glass something. And so I actually literally just took out the music app on my phone and searched the word glass. And because I'm a very big Beatles fan, that was the first song that popped up. And I was like, oh, all right, maybe it's a Glass Onion. And then cut to a few years later, we had to actually clear the song Glass Onion. And I think my producer is cursing my music app for it because it was not easy. but we got it. We got it, man. We got it.
Yeah, closed the credits. Yeah, and so it took you 10 years to write the first one, and then now you're working on the third?
Yeah, I'm just about to start going into it. Yeah, I'm really excited. About what.
Awesome. Yeah.
Excited about what it could be.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Ryan, for being here.
Thank you guys again. I hope to be back with another one. Thank you guys.
Absolutely. It was fun.